Hi and welcome to a new video by Goodbye Matrix. My name is Sergio von Facchin, and in this video I want to talk to you about the 9 reasons why I decided to buy the citizenship of St. Lucia, a Caribbean state that offers a citizenship by investment program. There are other CIB programs by various Caribbean states as well, so it is very important that you are clear about your personal setup when you are thinking about buying a citizenship. Do you have children? Do you have a family? Do you have a wife, a husband, or the like? Are you on your own? This will determine which program might be relevant for you in the Caribbean, for example, and which one you would like to go through. As a family, you should take a look at Antigua and Barbuda. Here you have the most affordable and easiest option to include your parents, siblings, and so on. If you are an individual applicant, St. Lucia or Dominica are generally suitable for you. For me personally, due to various family constellations and because of the current sanctions against Russia, it is not possible for me to choose the option for the whole family here because my wife comes from Russia and was born there. As soon as you were born in Russia, the Caribbean countries no longer offer these CBI programs. As a result, I was unfortunately only able to apply for citizenship individually. Well, let's first look at an important point that was, of course, also relevant to me, namely the comparison of costs. You can already see in the overview table from April 24 that St. Lucia on the far left and Dominica on the right are interesting in terms of price for one person, means for a single applicant. The prices can vary slightly depending on the personal constellation, but if you are a family with several members, then Antigua and Barbuda usually offers an interesting program. And accordingly, I personally took a very close look at the programs offered by St. Lucia and Dominica in order to decide on a program. Personally, I didn't see the point in paying another $50,000 more for the Grenada program. So that was out of question for me. The prices for the program of St. Kitts and Nevis have already risen dramatically, so that was also not relevant for me anymore. I also saw no reason to pay another $30,000 of additional fees for the Antigua and Barbuda program. That was, of course, an important point for me to keep the costs within reasonable limits. Accordingly, St. Lucia and Dominica remained relevant for me as an individual applicant. However, these were not the only points that were important to me. Let's take a quick look at the comparison of freedom to travel. In general, you can say that St. Lucia has good connections to the West. On the other hand, that's why they don't yet have visa-free travel to Russia or China. If it is important for you to have China and Russia included, then Dominica is of course a much better choice, although Antigua also has access to Russia, as does Grenada. So if this is important to you, then Dominica and Grenada would be interesting for a single applicant, especially if you are traveling to Russia and China on business. For me personally, because of my family, I already have connections to Russia anyway, and could easily obtain a residence permit there. In this respect, that wasn't a decisive criterion for a program, and China isn't important to me either because I'm not really active in business there. Hong Kong and Singapore are much more important to me, and maybe London as well. I spend a lot of time in Hong Kong and Singapore and have companies there, so it makes sense for me to have access to these countries. St. Lucia offers me that. I also currently have access to the UK, which Dominica has already lost. Dominica no longer has access to Great Britain, but as I said, that's not a point for me. The Schengen area is not really a point either. Currently, of course, all 5 Caribbean states still have access to the Schengen area. It could be that St. Lucia will lose access to the Schengen area in the coming months because they have not yet announced that they will raise prices. However, I strongly assume that they will do so and that they are already talking to the EU in the background. There are probably other contractual conditions that are currently preventing St. Lucia from raising prices. It's about old contracts, development programs, and infrastructure projects. But I strongly assume that they will follow suit in 2025. That's why one should start implementation as soon as possible. But you can see that not much is happening in terms of visa-free travel. As I said, St. Lucia does not offer visa-free travel for Russia and China, but if that is not relevant for you as it isn't for me, then the question is, what other points are there to take in consideration? The third point I would like to briefly point out here is that the programs can be completed remotely. Many do not realize this. Only with the Antigua and Barbuda program you would have to travel to Antigua and Barbuda once. After approval, you have to travel there for 1 week within the first 5 years and be on site. All other programs can be done completely remotely, and you don't have to be there even after naturalization. Just because I'm a citizen of the country doesn't mean I have to live there. I can also be a German citizen and still not have to live in Germany, but you do have the option of living there. As a German citizen, I also have the option of settling anywhere in the EU because of the freedom of establishment. You could also call this CARICOM association the EU of the Caribbean. That's what I like to call it, because a passport from one of the members potentially opens up 15 new opportunities for me to simply settle in the 15 other countries. In general, you already have freedom of movement in the 7 Eastern Caribbean states that make up the OECS Economic Union. The OECS Economic Union includes Antigua and Barbuda, Dominica, Grenada, Montserrat, St. Kitts and Nevis, St. Lucia, St. Vincent, and the Grenadines. I can simply settle there. This means that if I have a passport from St. Lucia and I'm a citizen there, I could also live in St. Kitts and Nevis, among other places. This option is a great advantage. And then there's also CARICOM and CARICOM CSME. The agreement since the 1st of March 2024 is that the CARICOM CSME heads of state and government should introduce freedom of movement for all CARICOM CSME citizens and generally for all CARICOM citizens in the future. They are currently working on this. At the moment, complete freedom of movement is not yet a fact. What you see here is CARICOM, which currently has 15 full members. The countries highlighted in orange are not currently CSME members, and they are not currently participating in the free movement of persons. However, it is very easy to reside in these countries and obtain a residence permit. This is possible in a simplified manner in all countries. For example, as a CARICOM CSME citizen, it is also very easy to settle in Belize. The Bahamas are, of course, very interesting as a completely tax-free country. If you want to get a residence permit in the Bahamas, you have to invest at least $750,000 in real estate. If you compare that with a passport that you buy for around $130,000, that is, of course, a big difference to $750,000. And with this residence permit, I could only stay in the Bahamas and not in the other 15 countries. With the Caribbean passport, I have the option of potentially just settling in these 15 CARICOM states. For the future, I assume that all countries will generally participate and that the Bahamas will also be included. Bermuda is already planning to become a full member of CARICOM. Then you could simply live there as well. That is, of course, very interesting in regard of the flag theory. With a CARICOM passport and the possibility of settling in the CARICOM states, I have created completely new options for myself, far away from Brussels and the EU. Just look at it geographically. There's a huge ocean in between. This means that if you want to create a plan B, plan C, plan D, and build a firewall against the EU, if you want to have the option of fleeing there in emergency situations, whether it's an upcoming pandemic or war, or that you simply want to leave, or that the EU goes completely crazy with all its laws, then you can simply settle in this area of the world. So I have that as an option. Of course, I can also try to get citizenship somewhere in South America in the future. Then I'll even have access to Mercosur, so you can always check which blocks are spread around the world and where you can settle. It's not only good to store your assets far away from the EU, but also that you can quickly maneuver yourself out if necessary. Let's look at another point that is also very important to me. I'm just generally not a fan of bureaucracy, of having to deal with a lot of paperwork. I just hate that. I just don't like it at all, but St. Lucia has made it very easy for me in this regard. You have to prove your health for most of the CBI programs in these 5 Caribbean countries. But St. Lucia has now completely abolished even the simple health screening. That means I don't have to do that anymore. Pretty cool, I think. That means it's another piece of paper that is no longer needed. There are appointments with the doctor that I don't have to make. There are fewer costs, fewer notarizations and translations. For me, the deciding factor was also which program involved the least amount of paperwork. At the end of the video, I will give an overview of all the documents I had to provide. You'll see how simple the St. Lucia program is. When I compare it to Antigua and Barbuda, St. Kitts and Nevis and Grenada, I definitely would have to provide an HIV test for those programs. And Dominica would actually have been a good option for me as a single applicant, which would also be the cheapest next to St. Lucia. But I wouldn't just have to take the HIV test there. I'd have to do a complete blood count, a urine test, vaccinations, and so on. Of course, it all takes time. You have to make the appointments. It all costs money. You have to undergo these examinations. For me, it was an easy decision, a no-brainer to decide for the program of St. Lucia. Point number 6. St. Kitts and Nevis have shown where prices are heading. From the 30th of June this year, prices will be raised to at least $230,000. St. Lucia, as I said, has not currently announced anything, but I strongly suspect that there will be price increases from 2025 on. That means it's now or never. Of course, that was also a reason for me to look into it now. In addition, Germany has now allowed dual citizenship. That and the price increases in the Caribbean prompted me to say, okay, I'll do it now and not wait any longer. Another point that is very important to me from a perpetual traveler's point of view is potential protection against taxation based on citizenship. The Federal Republic of Germany could take Hungary as an example here, because Hungary already has taxation according to citizenship. If you are a Hungarian citizen and do not live in a country that has a double taxation agreement with Hungary, the regulation applies. And it also applies if you live in a country that has a double taxation agreement with Hungary, but you are not resident there for tax purposes. This means that living as a perpetual traveler is not really possible from a Hungarian citizen's tax perspective. You first have to find and establish a tax domicile, and of course in a country that has a double taxation agreement with Hungary. But you are not subject to this regulation if you have another citizenship in addition to Hungarian citizenship. Therefore, as a Hungarian with a second citizenship, you can simply live as a perpetual traveler. Germany could regulate this in the same way and would not have any problems with the EU. It is often argued that the FRG would have to renegotiate all double taxation agreements if taxation by citizenship were introduced, and the EU would not consider this to be in line with EU law. The way Hungary has organized it, it seems possible to tax according to nationality. Why shouldn't the FRG be able to do the same? This would mean that the classic concept of perpetual traveling, which we and many in our community have been using for years, would no longer be possible without further ado. But if, as in the case of Hungary, such a regulation does not affect dual nationals, you would be out of trouble. That's just what I see. I simply want to create more options for myself now. For me, this is also the next logical step in the implementation of the flag theory, to buy a citizenship now and implement this supreme discipline. Let's put it that way. Because I have managed everything else very well in recent years. My assets are very well diversified. My fortune is spread across a wide range of options and asset classes worldwide. I've secured various residences and permanent residence permits. I have various bank accounts in different jurisdictions. I have companies spread around the world, and so on and so forth. So I have already implemented all the points of the flag theory very well for me personally. Of course, nothing is perfect. You always work on it step by step, but I've never really been able to implement the issue of citizenship in recent years because Germany didn't allow dual citizenship. Now it will soon be possible. In addition, the Caribbean countries are now going to raise their prices. Now I tell myself that the easiest way for me to get a second citizenship quickly is to buy one now, because my assets will allow me to do so. I just want to do this now and expand my personal setup, especially with regard to citizenships. In the future, I can still buy a property in Istanbul and thus acquire Turkish citizenship. Or I'll try to get naturalized somewhere else, but then I have already created a time buffer. If, in the meantime, Germany turns the wheel and introduces taxation based on citizenship or something else, I've potentially already created a firewall for myself, which I think is very important. Finally, let's take a quick look at the paperwork I have to do for St. Lucia. As you can see, it's actually very simple. There aren't that many documents that you have to provide. I had to copy all the pages of my passport and have them notarized with an apostille. The same applies to all my identity cards from various countries and also my driver's license. I have applied for the birth certificate with apostille. In the middle, highlighted in blue, you can see what you need from which document. Sometimes a scanned copy that can be translated is sufficient. Sometimes you need a physical copy plus apostille, and at the end of the list you can see an overview of the documents that I have to submit as originals. I get the originals back later. The only thing that is a bit more complicated are the documents that have to be apostilled. But that is also relatively easy to do. I have already applied for everything. I already have my marriage certificate with an apostille. If you are divorced, you need the divorce decree, but that of course doesn't apply to everyone. Then you need 6 photos, a CV, documents about the companies you founded or where you worked as an employee. In my case, there are 5 different companies worldwide where I am a shareholder or director. Then you need bank reference letters, which are also very easy to obtain. you also need education certificates, means proof of education or your diploma from university and so on. Then, of course, you have to provide certificates of good conduct with an apostille, and that's it. St. Lucia requires very few documents compared to Dominica, for example, or the other programs. In my opinion, every perpetual traveler can do this in any case. As already mentioned, this is also one of the most important reasons why I decided to go through the St. Lucia program, because it is very easy to implement. If you would like to decide to also implement something in the Caribbean or generally want to purchase a citizenship, you will find a link below the video. You can request a no obligation quote. You will then be put in contact with Anastasia Danilova. You can see her here in the photo so that you know who you are dealing with. She will coordinate the process and accompany you throughout your application. If you have any questions, please feel free to write a comment. I hope you enjoyed the information. I'll see you again in the next video. Until then, bye.